Good morning, gentlemen. Here's back to another session, and I hope we're going to have a wonderful one this time. A lot of people, who have written to me, and they said, please put something on Pakistan. Pakistan going through a terrible period. In my opinion, it's been going through a terrible period right from 1947, but now the situation's really in extreme and looks like they could be heading for a civil war. So when so many people have written to me, my friends, and the people who follow me, I thought it's a good idea to talk about Pakistan. Now let's have a look at Pakistan. Pakistan became independent along with India in 1947. But India chose the path of secularism and democracy, and Pakistan also had a very good leader at that time, that was Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who was a secularist, but he died pretty fast just after independence, and the net result was there was nobody to steer Pakistan forward, and they relapsed into obscurantism, backwardness, and they started talking about Islam more and more than about progress and other things. So much so that now, after 75 years, I have a very sad news to relate to you that there were two sisters who had come from Spain to Pakistan, had been brought there by their mother, and they were forcibly married to their cousins. They were Spanish citizens with Pakistani origin. And what happened? The relatives began to force these girls to take their cousins abroad to Spain. The girls said, we don't want to marry them, we don't want to stay with them, we don't want to take them to Spain. But the net result was they were tortured and then shot dead. Of course, the police have arrested a few people, including the brothers and the mother and so many people, who were part of the scheme of things. But the fact is, it's a very, very terrible situation in Pakistan. And just some time back, if you remember, there was a model called Kandil. Uh, I think her name was Baluch Kandil or something. And she was strangled to death by her brother. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, but then the father forgave him and he was released. Now, there's another peculiarity of Pakistan law, that you commit a murder, you do something, and then you get released because you are pardoned by the man who's involved, and it's got no relevance really. I don't think this is followed anywhere in the civilized world. So this about shows, and these are the only two cases which have come out, but there are hundreds of other cases which continue like this. And then we have the case, one of my friends from Peshawar has written to me and said that she's very worried because recently, just a few weeks, I think maybe 1 or 2 months back, a little earlier, a Pakistani young girl who was making a video at the Shaheed Minar in Lahore was stripped naked by a crowd of about 400 people. And you know what happened after that? Imran Khan, the Prime Minister, made a lot of noise here and there, but nothing practically happened. So Pakistan has gone down to the path of obscurantism. They don't believe in anything good. I don't know what they believe in. Now they have a democracy functioning also, a democracy in name, because democracy means the power remains with the army. They're the main constituent of power in Pakistan, and the other people are just holding on to small positions here and there, and that's about all. And the army decides who's going to be Prime Minister of Pakistan, and they decided that the previous Prime Minister, Nawaz Sharif, must be thrown out, and he was. They made out some charges of corruption against him, sentenced him to 10 years in jail, and he ran. And this is one of the peculiarities of Pakistan, that all their leaders have either been hanged, shot dead, murdered, or even just take it, or just sent into exile. And that is rise from 1951 when Liaquat Ali Khan was shot dead while making a public speech. And then we have the sad case of Zulfikar Bhutto being hanged for a crime which he never did. He was supposed to have committed some murder, which he had not done. And even when he was on the last throes and taken to death row, his last words were, by God, I never killed anybody. But all that is there, and now much water has flown down the Ganges, or shall we say the in this river. But Pakistan hasn't changed. It's like a leopard. It doesn't change its spots. They just continue like this. Imran Khan was the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and he thought he's going to be a great chap, by playing to the gallery of obscurantism and whatever you'd call it. He was getting friendly with the terrorist organizations, and he thought once the Taliban comes back to power, he's going to have a great time. And he made a very silly statement where he said, when the Taliban came back to power, what did he say? He said, the chains or the shackles have been broken. What shackles was he talking of? Anyway, the shackles became so bad that these Taliban people started attacking the Pakistanis. They have a Pakistan Taliban which is operating in Pakistan, carrying out terrorist attacks, and Imran Khan was doing nothing. And not only that, Imran Khan ensured that the Pakistan economy tanked. The rupee became 180 rupees to a dollar. There's very less food, oil, and then the Chinese were getting chagrined. They were very angry. Many of their engineers and people who had come to Pakistan were getting killed in the so-called CPAC project. So in that turmoil, and he made a visit to, of all places, to Russia when the war was on, and he went and made a statement there and said, what an exciting time it is. I mean, this is not a statement to make. Americans didn't like it. And there is also some evidence to suggest that the Americans were not happy with Imran Khan and they wanted to remove him. There are many stooges available. See, like in India also, we have many stooges available, the foreign powers. And I remember one of the top writers was writing a book that during the 1971 war, the CIA had a mole in the cabinet of Indira Gandhi. Nobody knows who it was, whether it was Jagjeevan Ram Murarji Desai or XYZ. Nobody knows about it. But then he made a statement, probably it could be true. I don't say it's 100% gospel truth. Similarly, in Pakistan also, the Americans have got a lot of stooges, and those stooges started getting together, and finally they were able to cobble up a no confidence motion and threw Imran Khan out. This was with the connivance of General Bajwa of the Pakistan Army. You can't do a thing without the army in Pakistan. Now, once Imran was thrown out, he started battling the army also. He realized that the army had a big hand in his removal, because just after he was removed, General Bajwa, in a statement, in an address I think he had made somewhere, he said that Russia is the aggressor in Ukraine. I mean, why should he make a statement like that? But he did make it. And the Americans were pretty pleased with it. And probably it gives you a clue as to how Imran Khan was ousted from power. Now, Imran Khan became the first prime minister in Pakistan history to be voted out of power. He was voted out, sent home. But Imran Khan is a man with charisma. I will accept that. And he is a leader to some extent. And even when I was in Dubai and UAE, the educated elite swore by him. They said he's the best man going around. He's got a lot of support. And the moment Imran Khan came out, he started an agitation. He is saying that this is an imported government which has been set up by with the brother of Nawaz Sharif, Shahbaz Sharif, as the prime minister. And Shahbaz, just for the record, is facing so many criminal charges of corruption and graft and this thing and that thing. Well, maybe they're all fixed, but then you can have smoke without fire, and there's a good chance that something may be true also. But all the same, he's the prime minister of Pakistan, but at the same time, he's not a charismatic leader. He can't match Imran Khan. And now Imran Khan has served a notice to the government that within 6 days, if they do not declare general election, he's going to hold the country to ransom. He's going to see to it that Pakistan is brought to a halt. He started a long march, which he ultimately gave up because there was some firing. A policeman was killed. And basically, he's been appealing to the army to be neutral. Now, as I told you, the army is the dubious creation in Pakistan. The job of any army is to be professional and fight for the nation. This is something the army doesn't believe in Pakistan. They tasted the power and they want to stick to it. It's like, the man eater, the tiger. Once he gets a taste of human flesh, what he does? He wants human flesh. And there's the Pakistan army. They get tasted power. So everything from they're manufacturing from tea bags, mind you, tea bags. I was in Islamabad, and when coffee was served, I found that it was made by Pakistan Ordnance or something like that. The tea bag. So everything is there with Pakistan, and the army's got a finger in the pie. They went and lost the war in Bangladesh. 100,000 of them got captured, and General Niazi cut a sorry figure. He signed on the dotted line in the race course before 100,000 people and said, I surrender. So there you are. This is what happened. The army has not been able to fight the terrorists in Pakistan, in Waziristan. They've been running around here and there. Why? See, there's an old saying, you can't run with the hare and hunt with the hound. But that's what they're doing. They want to distinguish between good and bad terrorism. Nothing like that. Terrorism is a seamless organization. They're encouraging some terrorists to attack India. This is one of the Pakistan policy to try and bleed India with 100 cuts. It was started by General Zia-ul Haq, but then they haven't succeeded. India has moved forward, so has Kashmir. There are a few sporadic incidents here and there by the LET and other terrorist organizations, but they're getting a very solid response and don't think they're going to succeed in the long run. And that is, I think, a point which people must think about it. But Pakistan is now in the throes of jaws of death. There is tension. There are two big crowds. Even the army is divided, I'm told. General Bajwa was on one side, and there's another general, who was the chief of the ISI earlier. He's on the other side. Bajwa was due to retire this November. I hope he retires or he wishes to retire. But once he retires or he gets an extension, the army, other generals are not going to like it. So the army is also divided. Imran has some support in the army also. That is why he is doing all this. But what is happening is that Pakistan is heading towards chaos. There is a battle on in Balochistan by the Baloch Liberation Army. The Pakistan Taliban is fighting in Waziristan and northwest frontier, and they have their tentacles all over Pakistan. The only loyal state of Pakistan is Punjab, and the army, thankfully, as far as Pakistan is concerned, is recruited only from Punjab, and that also for 4 specific districts. Now, what does this boil down? Boils down to the fact that there's a division in Pakistan. There's heading to anarchy. Now, anarchy has got so many other facets. It's got an economic facet also. And Pakistan is facing tremendous economic problem. The rupee is short over 200. Their foreign reserves are zero, and they're looking to be bailed out. Saudi Arabia is trying to bail them out with a $7 billion loan, but obviously it comes with some strings. It's not just given free and say, okay, bye bye, enjoy it, something like that. The UAE doesn't give them any food. They don't want to be part of Pakistan. And Turkey is also withdrawn because Turkey, which was trying to aspire for leadership of the Islamic world, has now given up. They're making sort of making the bridges with Israel, and they are also not that in India now. And Imran Khan, in any case, has been anti-India throughout, and his rhetoric is that this regime has been fostered by the Americans, and he's playing to popular sentiments because in Pakistan, America is not liked. Israel is they consider as an enemy, and the second they consider India as an enemy. Now, why they should do that? Uh, it beats my imagination. But all the same, that is the fact. Now they consider India as an enemy, Israel and the United States they have never liked. And the educated elite and the masses are getting hysterical that this regime has been imposed by America. Now, I don't think America could have imposed the regime, but they had turncoats available there who played the American tune, sang the American songs. With the result, Imran Khan is sitting outside. And now, even China is not too happy with Pakistan because a number of Chinese have been killed, and China is unable to get back the loans which they have given. And China by now must have realized that the investment in Pakistan is dead. I don't know what made them go and invest in Pakistan, other than the fact they thought they'll be able to contain India. And India wanted to be friends with China, but Chinese have a parochial, paranoid fear. And that is what has got let down the Chinese totally. Now China is also involved in Taiwan. We'll talk about that later. But concentrating on Pakistan, there is the opposition led now by Imran Khan, and he's got populist support. He's galvanizing the people against the government. And believe me, what I feel the government really is at loss. They don't know what to do. How going to deal with Imran Khan? So they're trying to catch him in different ways. This first of all started by banning electronic voting machines. Why the hell you should do that? But probably they wanted to manipulate the elections because now you will have the paper election, and that can be, you can count the votes anyway. I remember, if you remember Joseph Stalin, what he said, in any election, what counts is not the man who votes, but the man who counts the votes. I mean, you must give credit to Stalin for some wonderful statements that the man who counts the votes is the most important man. So that is only possible if there is no EVM, electronic voting machine, with their band. Then Imran had a lot of support for Pakistanis outside Pakistan, in United States, UAE, all over. And they have now said that these gentlemen cannot vote in the election. At the same time, they say we'll continue the full term, that's for another year plus, and then only order election, because they know if they hold an election now, they're going to be wiped out. Because there's no doubt about it, Nawaz Sharif is sitting in London, he didn't come back, and the other chaps here are no match to the charisma of Imran Khan, and Imran Khan is going to win. The only question, the only flaw in the ointment as far as Imran is concerned is the army. And the army, I don't think is really happy with Imran Khan, otherwise wouldn't have deposed him. And the army had a big say when they deposed Imran Khan and sent him home. But Imran Khan knows it. His family is in England. His sons are in England. He is here in India, in Pakistan, fighting away. But the situation is like a tinderbox. Boom! Pakistan could explode any time. The only chance is that the army could intervene and put a halt to it, halt to the massacre which is likely to happen. But even if this the present lot, whatever happens, this present crisis is shelved or peters out, Pakistan will have more and more crises to come. Pakistan needs a radical change. They need a Muhammad Ali Jinnah. They need someone who can look forward, not someone who looks backwards. And Pakistan still has the old archaic laws continuing. The Sharia has parts of it has still being used in Pakistan. The Hudud ordinance, which General Ziaul Haq had promulgated, has not been scrapped. It's only been a little watered down here and there. And such a lot has to be done for Pakistan if it has to move forward. So they are on the verge of a civil war, that in my view. What is a civil war? Civil war is when two civilian factions start fighting locally each other. Imran Khan is stoking the flames of a civilian war. You see, I mean, I have a sympathy with Imran Khan in the sense that he's been deposed. He didn't get a chance to do anything further. He had no chance, rather, as the army had ganged up against him. And the Americans were keen that he should be removed. And he's been removed and sent home. I don't think he'll be able to come back until unless the army changes tune and Imran Khan changes tune. Pakistan is in dire straits. The economy is terrible. And God forbid that Pakistan is heading towards what's happening in Sri Lanka. You know what's happening in Sri Lanka. There's no food, there's no oil, they don't have money to pay the debts. Pakistan is heading towards the same way. And part of it is because of Imran Khan. He was a charismatic leader, but he was a man without greatness. He was talking of all silly things. I mean, in a sense, during his time, it's so silly that when the Taliban came to power, he was encouraging Pakistan girls to sing songs like Salam Taliban. I mean, you can't be more sillier than that. Net result is the Taliban is in force in Pakistan, in Afghanistan. They're not very enamored of Pakistan at all. They don't recognize the Durand line. They say that's artificial creation of the British, and they want to claim the areas right up to Peshawar as part of Afghanistan. The Afghan Taliban is in action. There are other terrorist groups in action in Pakistan who want the Sharia to come in because they feel Pakistan is not a pristine Islamic state. Well, gentlemen, that's all I'll say now. Pakistan is in deep trouble. But as always, perhaps I think it will survive. But is survival the only thing in life? That you survive, the people are unhappy, there's no food to eat, there's no progress, you live in obscurantism, murderers who kill their daughters get away. Is that the type of society? Is that called living on? But that's precisely what is happening in Pakistan. How is it going to change? And if Pakistan has to take a leaf, it should take a leaf out of the way, out of the book, the way India has progressed. I will close now, gentlemen, and say once again, with my familiar salute, Jai Hind. I hope you like this video. I'll be very glad if you share it and subscribe. Thank you very much, and God bless.